The moment Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader, the galaxy shifted. His transformation into the Dark Enforcer of the Sith marked a turning point in Star Wars history, but one detail often sparks curiosity. Why didn't Nightfall Vader wield a red lightsaber during his initial descent into the dark side? While many explanations can be pieced together from Star Wars lore, understanding this choice requires diving into the significance of lightsaber colors, Sith traditions, and Anakin's tumultuous journey. A lightsaber is more than a weapon. For Jedi, it represents harmony with the Force, a symbol of their connection to the crystal that powers it. Blue and green are common for Jedi, signifying peace and focus. For the Sith, the blood-red blade embodies their passion and dominance over the Force. Unlike the Jedi who align with their crystals, Sith bend kyber crystals to their will, causing them to bleed and turn red. This process symbolizes their corruption and rejection of natural harmony. Nightfall Vader, the version of Anakin that stormed the Jedi Temple, was in a state of transition. At this stage, he was still in possession of his blue Jedi lightsaber, the weapon of a guardian and protector. Although he had pledged allegiance to Darth Sidious and the Sith, the process of fully embracing the dark side was not instantaneous. His transformation was emotional and psychological, and it did not immediately extend to his lightsaber. Anakin's decision to wield his blue blade during the attack on the Jedi Temple underscores his inner conflict. While he had accepted the title of Darth Vader, remnants of his former self lingered. He had not yet undergone the ritual of creating a red lightsaber, which would have required him to corrupt a kyber crystal. This was a deliberate process that demanded time, reflection, and the complete surrender of one's identity as a Jedi. Anakin, consumed by his immediate task of eliminating the Jedi, had not yet reached the point where crafting a Sith blade was a priority. Additionally, Darth Sidious may have deliberately delayed Anakin's transition to a red lightsaber. Sidious, a master manipulator, understood that Anakin's fall required careful cultivation. Allowing Anakin to use his blue lightsaber during his initial acts as Darth Vader could have been a strategic decision, reinforcing Anakin's belief that his actions were justified. To Anakin, he wasn't entirely abandoning his role as a protector. He saw his actions as necessary to bring order and stability to the galaxy, albeit through the twisted lens of Sith ideology. The symbolism of Anakin retaining his blue lightsaber during the attack on the Jedi Temple cannot be overstated. This weapon, once a beacon of hope and justice, became an instrument of terror. For those who witnessed the massacre, seeing a Jedi blade used against the Jedi must have been profoundly disorienting and horrifying. It emphasized the tragedy of Anakin's fall and the corruption of his ideals. Instead of forging a new identity as Darth Vader immediately, he desecrated his old one, further deepening his betrayal of the Jedi Order. From a practical perspective, the time frame between Anakin's christening as Darth Vader and the events of Order 66 was incredibly short. The transition from Jedi to Sith, symbolized by the construction of a red lightsaber, would not have fit neatly into this period. Instead, Lucasfilm opted to emphasize the continuity of Anakin's journey by maintaining the iconic blue blade, a reminder of his past even as he embraced his dark destiny. Star Wars storytelling often leans on visual and symbolic cues to evoke emotion and underscore character development. By keeping Anakin's blue lightsaber during his attack on the Jedi Temple, the filmmakers emphasized the tragedy of his fall. The blade, which had once been a source of hope and inspiration, became a tool of destruction. This visual contrast added depth to Anakin's character and highlighted the devastating consequences of his choices. At the same time, the absence of a red lightsaber during these events serves to distinguish Anakin's state as Nightfall Vader from his fully realized form as Darth Vader. This transitional phase of his character is unique, marked by inner conflict and the last vestiges of his former self. It is only later, when Anakin has fully embraced his identity as Darth Vader, that he constructs his iconic red lightsaber, completing his transformation. The choice to delay Anakin's use of a red lightsaber also aligns with Sith philosophy and tradition. The Sith view the creation of a red blade as a defining moment, a rite of passage that cements their commitment to the dark side. This process involves stealing a Jedi's kyber crystal or using their own, corrupting it through intense meditation and rage. For Anakin, This act would symbolize the final severance of his ties to the Jedi Order. By the time he wields his red lightsaber, Anakin is no longer in transition. He is fully Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith. This transformation is not only physical but deeply symbolic. The red blade is a visible manifestation of Anakin's complete surrender to the dark side. Until this moment, the blue blade serves as a remnant of his former life, a tool that bridges his dual identities. Its use during the massacre at the Jedi Temple speaks to the complexity of Anakin's character and the slow, deliberate nature of his fall. The decision to delay Anakin's adoption of a red lightsaber also has roots in the broader narrative structure of Star Wars. The transition from Jedi to Sith is not portrayed as a sudden event but as a gradual, painful descent. By allowing Anakin to retain his blue lightsaber during the initial stages of his fall, the story emphasizes the internal struggle and tragic nature of his character. This approach resonates with the overarching themes of the Star Wars saga, which often explore the duality of light and dark, hope and despair, and the choices that define a person's destiny. Moreover, the blue lightsaber adds a layer of poignancy to the story. As Anakin marches into the Jedi Temple with his blade ignited, it serves as a visual reminder of his potential for greatness and the path he could have taken. It contrasts sharply with the horrors he commits, making his fall to the dark side all the more heartbreaking. By the time Anakin adopts his red lightsaber, the audience has witnessed the complete erosion of his former self, heightening the impact of his transformation. Ultimately, the decision to delay Anakin's use of a red lightsaber reflects the rich symbolism and character-driven storytelling that define the Star Wars saga. Through this choice, the filmmakers emphasized the tragedy of Anakin's fall, the complexity of his character, and the gradual nature of his transformation into Darth Vader. It is a powerful narrative device that adds depth to the story and reinforces the central themes of light and dark, hope and despair that lie at the heart of Star Wars. As Anakin Skywalker's journey into Darth Vader solidified, the shift to a red lightsaber became inevitable, but its delay was both strategic and thematic. The moment he would eventually wield a crimson blade would signify not only the culmination of his transformation but also his final divorce from his Jedi identity. Until then, his iconic blue blade functioned as an unsettling juxtaposition, a relic of the light used to enact dark deeds. The significance of lightsaber colors, especially in the Star Wars universe, lies in their representation of a wielder's connection to the Force. For the Jedi, their sabers resonate with their alignment to peace and protection, while the Sith's red blades symbolize their rage, domination, and defiance of natural order. This is not a superficial shift, but a deeply personal and transformative act. When a Sith creates their lightsaber, it's a ritualistic process, one that requires them to corrupt a kyber crystal, pouring their hatred, fear, and anger into it until it bleeds red. For Anakin, the completion of this process would mark the point of no return. During the events of Order 66, Anakin's adoption of the Darth Vader mantle was fresh, and he had not yet undergone the necessary rite to create a Sith blade. This ritual, steeped in Sith lore, required reflection and the deliberate assertion of one's will over the Force, a process that demanded time and focus. Anakin was immediately thrust into the execution of Sidious's grand plan, leaving no room for such an undertaking. His focus was on the eradication of the Jedi Order and solidifying the Sith's control over the galaxy. The blue blade he carried was a pragmatic choice, already at his side and ready for use. Furthermore, the blue lightsaber served as a potent psychological tool, both for Anakin and for those who faced him. To the Jedi in the temple, seeing a familiar Jedi weapon turned against them would have been deeply demoralizing. It reinforced the depth of Anakin's betrayal, a trusted protector becoming their executioner. For Anakin himself, the blade may have allowed him to maintain an illusion of justification. In his mind, his actions were for the greater good. He was not slaughtering the Jedi as a Sith but eliminating them as a necessary step to bring peace to the galaxy. This self-deception is a hallmark of his descent, a means to reconcile his actions with the ideals he once upheld. From a narrative perspective, the blue lightsaber provided continuity and a visual bridge between Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. It reminded audiences that this was the same character who had fought valiantly alongside the Jedi, who had been a hero of the Clone Wars and who had shared deep bonds with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. The weapon symbolized the tragedy of his fall, showing how far he had strayed from his ideals. The sight of Anakin, clad in dark robes but wielding a Jedi blade, evoked a sense of loss and unease, underscoring the idea that his transformation was not yet complete. The delay in Anakin's adoption of a red lightsaber also allowed for a more dramatic and impactful reveal of his full transformation into Darth Vader. By withholding the red blade until later in his arc, the filmmakers were able to emphasize the gravity of that moment. The red lightsaber would not merely be a tool but a symbol of his total commitment to the dark side, a visual declaration that Anakin Skywalker was truly gone. In the broader context of Star Wars, this gradual transition aligns with the saga's exploration of the conflict between light and dark. The journey from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader is not a single event but a series of choices, each one pulling him further from the light. The use of his blue lightsaber during this transitional phase reflects the complexity of this process. It highlights the remnants of his former self, the internal struggle that defined his fall, and the profound tragedy of his story. Finally, it's worth considering the practical constraints of the narrative. The timeline between Anakin's christening as Darth Vader and his march on the Jedi Temple is exceptionally tight. Expecting him to construct a new lightsaber, complete the Sith ritual, and prepare for the temple raid in such a short span would strain credibility. By maintaining his use of the blue blade, the story flows seamlessly, focusing on the emotional and thematic weight of Anakin's actions rather than the logistics of his transformation. When Anakin eventually constructs his red lightsaber, it serves as the final punctuation mark in his journey to becoming Darth Vader. By this point, the internal conflict that characterized his early days as a Sith is gone, replaced by the cold resolve of a Dark Lord. The red blade signifies that he has fully embraced his new identity and all that it entails. It is a moment of finality, marking the end of Anakin Skywalker and the birth of Darth Vader in the truest sense. Thus, the choice to delay Anakin's use of a red lightsaber is deeply rooted in the narrative, symbolic, and emotional fabric of Star Wars. It reflects his transition, his internal conflict, and the thematic richness of his story. By allowing him to wield his blue blade during the events of Order 66, the filmmakers underscored the tragedy of his fall, the complexity of his character, and the slow, deliberate nature of his descent into darkness. The eventual adoption of a red lightsaber then becomes a powerful moment of transformation, cementing his place as one of the most iconic villains in cinematic history.